One individual who deserves to be recognized in the history of the English Bible was a fellow by the name of John Rogers. He lived from the years 1500 to 1555. John Rogers was a convert of William Tyndale, and John Rogers was a converted Catholic priest. When John Rogers got saved, he denounced the Roman Catholic religion, and he also denounced his vow of celibacy as a priest, and instead he wound up getting married and had 8 children. John Rogers was a disciple of William Tyndale. William Tyndale trained him in the Word of God. After getting married, John Rogers moved to Wittenberg and became the pastor of a Dutch-speaking church. John Rogers stayed very close to William Tyndale up until Tyndale's death, and together they secretly made plans to get William Tyndale's New Testament and his Old Testament portions into the hands of John Rogers before the Roman Catholic Church could confiscate Tyndale's Bible and destroy it. John Rogers had a pseudonym for his work. His pseudonym was Thomas Matthews. And so for that reason, John Rogers, he picked up where William Tyndale left off to complete the rest of the Bible that Tyndale was not allowed to complete. And his completion of Tyndale's work became known as the Matthews Bible, named after his pseudonym, Thomas Matthews. Because of how controversial William Tyndale was, and because of the persecution going on at that time, the reason why they called his completed work the Matthews Bible was they were hoping that renaming it would cause that English version of the Bible to become more acceptable to the king. And the Matthews Bible, it was basically the New Testament of William Tyndale, along with the Old Testament portions that Tyndale completed, and the rest of the Old Testament completed by John Rogers and another fellow named Miles Coverdale. By combining the works of Tyndale and Coverdale, he published it under the name the Matthews Bible. And for a time, James Rogers was able to secure a license to legally print Tyndale's Bible for several years in England. That was something unheard of at that time. This success was very short-lived, however. Just as soon as a lady named Mary of Tudor became the queen and ascended to the throne of England. This infamous Mary of Tudor is who is now known in history as Bloody Mary. When Mary of Tudor assumed the throne of England, she aligned herself with the Roman Catholic Church. She was a Catholic, and she worked with the Catholic Church to solidify her power. And under her authority, the Jesuits, an order of the Catholic Church, they tortured and murdered thousands of Protestants and non-Catholic believers. For this reason, she's known as Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary's first victim happened to be John Rogers himself. And on February the 4th, 1555, she ordered for the death of John Rogers. On the way to the stake, where they were to burn John Rogers to death, he sang a psalm all the way to the stake. His wife and children were all forced to watch John Rogers burned to death. One of his children was an infant at the time. But right before he was burned to death, the Catholic bishop gave John Rogers one last chance to recant his faith and to return to the Roman Catholic Church. John Rogers' reply and final words were, quote, "That which I have preached, I now seal with my blood." End of quote. What a courageous man of God was this man, John Rogers. Men back in these days, men of God back then, they had backbones made of steel. They were courageous. They had guts. They were not afraid to take a stand, a strong, militant stand for what they believed in. They were willing to be faithful even unto death, if that's what it took to get the pure words of God into the hands of the people. Well, despite the tragic murder of John Rogers and thousands of Christians, Bloody Mary and the Catholic Church were unsuccessful in their efforts to stop the mass production of the Word of God. And because of the inspiration and persistence of courageous men of God like John Rogers, the Word of God marched on and continues to march on even in our day and time. Thank God for men of God like John Rogers. May God raise up more courageous soldiers of the cross in our day and time as well. God bless you.